When you say I, you just said it several times. And you said me and mine and those kind of words too. You actually mean somebody by that. You mean a bodily identified self. You meant something very concretely by those I references, those reflexive references. A specifically identified, although not altogether defined, nonetheless a somehow conventionally presumed self, a separate self. Somehow or other vaguely being that body-mind, if anybody could possibly say that is a something for real. And it's not possible. When is it ever absolutely the something that it is? In any moment. As with this room, as I've said so many times, as I point out so often, just as I point out, no matter what arises, you're only the witness, the mere witness, not an identity, not an actor, mere witness, consciousness itself. Just so, this room, in any apparent sense we could agree to, exists, and yet not as you are seeing it. That is simply an appearance manufactured by all the apparatus of body, mind, and so on, from a certain fixed present position in time and space. Every other individual sitting in this room is likewise perceiving the room from a different position in time and space. And yet they're all seeing the same room. So what is the actual form of the room? What is the actual form or condition of all objects, all spaces, all others? What is the actual form in which they exist? You see, there are two fundamental dimensions. There is the subject, the who is it, and the object, the what is it. Who is it? No matter what arises, it's only the witness consciousness. Not an I, not a mind, not a separate, active anything, or anyone. Mere witness. Well, what is the room? Any object. It's not as point of view defines it. Not even all the points of view of everyone in this room collectively put together sees the room as a totality, all those views combined. You can't combine them all. Who combines all the points of view of all the people sitting in the room? They only remain themselves. Does anybody see the room? Anybody notice the room here? Is the room being all alone? Nobody knowing it yet? Because the room exists as it is, and therefore as it would be if perceived from every possible point of view. Now that room already exists. And clearly, you can assume it just by noticing. You see it a certain way, somebody else sees it a certain way. You look around, you understand that. You understand there's some kind of a room here that everybody's seeing, but they're all seeing it from some point of view. So that room, however, that exists previous to all those points of view is the actual room. Now, who's seeing that room? Who's seeing you? Do you get to see you? You don't get to see the back of your head. Sandra's sitting behind you. She can see the back of your head. She's more privileged than you. Does that mean she's more you than you are? When you say I and you mean you're this body and whatnot, you see, you speak, generally speaking, meaning everyone does, speaks as if they really know what they're talking about. That name they're using, that identity they are suggesting, is simply something they are pretending to be. You're all mummers. Not a single one of you actually knows that one you say you are. Not a single one of you knows that body-mind you say you are. You can't enumerate that mind. You can't see that total body. You can't see it from every possible point of view, in every in and out possibility in which it actually exists, and yet you say you are it. What are you actually claiming to be? What are you actually experiencing that you know you are, that's definable, self-evident, and fully in your experience in any moment? The witness. That's it. There is no one else self-evident, no condition self-evident as self other than witness consciousness only. Previous to every kind of thought, every perception, every orientation, every location. All those change. All the while, there is this awareness, unchanging, not characterized by any form or name, not performing any action. It is utterly, inherently free. And all objects are just apparitions made by point of view. If you understand them, they exist only in the totality of their real space of existence, which is not defined by any point of view nor by countless points of view put together all at once. It is the room as is beyond all perception. It is pure radiance. Conscious light is what is. The bright is what is. It is self-evidently the case. It is all that is. It is the truth. It is reality. It is God.
You are God.
It is absolute and it is self-evident. It is simply not realized by the ego or from the egoic perspective. That's no small matter, but it's all it is. All this struggling with being that presumed ego, then, that presumed self, that separate self identified with a body-mind that you never define, is just a presumption of something you must look like. It's a role. It's an idea. It's an illusion. It's not an actual experience. Nor is any object at all. Objects are illusions or mere appearances generated by the operation of point of view, particularization in time and space. It's always changing. It could vanish instantly. You never become a separate self. You never become an ego I. In actual becoming, in all appearances, the doings of ego go on, but the separate self is never accomplished. There's only the witness, the mere consciousness. That must be realized, established, all motions otherwise brought to rest in its heart place, and then that which is the witness must be entered into absolutely, so that its real condition and the condition of all appearances is realized. Everything becomes recognizable. The dilemma in the moment is that you do not realize your own self-condition, and you do not recognize the condition of what you are seeming to be experiencing. You don't know the self, and you don't recognize the objects. Fundamentally, that is the nature of the human dilemma or condition. Not knowing the self, not recognizing the objects. Both must be accomplished in the sadhana. The great life purpose is that sadhana of realization. All other purposes are mummery. Something of a body-mind manufacture. Something temporary, something made of illusions. Those bound by the self-contraction, the reactive self-contraction, bind one another. And this is also a dark time of terrible possibilities. Because the collective of mankind is utterly deluded, misleading itself through untruth. The only truth is reality itself, the truth of reality itself, which is divine, which is the truth of the self and the truth of all objects, all appearances. When the truth of the self is realized, it coincides with the truth of all objects recognized. That is perfect enlightenment. What if there were no thought? No separate self-identity at all. Nothing of the kind. Never arising, never. Ever. The whole context of apparent existence is utterly different when there is no I, no identity, no mind self, no self-idea of separate person. When all that arises, including the actions of this body, even its words, when all of that arises utterly spontaneously, you see, there is no me doing it as an internal, self-aware, self-contracted, separate somebody thinking these words and then saying them. But you imagine that is what's going on in your case. And so you find it to be a problem. Truly, it's not going on in your case any more than it is in mine. You simply don't know it. You haven't realized it. In the domain of cosmic happening, the pranas are moving out of the heart into the domain of body-mind. And there's an identity that flows with it, coincides with it. As soon as the moment of perception arises, there's me about it, you see, in your perspective. There's always this named separate self, experiencing that, being that, talking that, thinking that, suffering that, and so on. But it's not so. Obviously not. you always re-notice when I mention it, I presume. No matter what arises, even now, right now, no matter what arises, right now, you're only the witness. Not actively witnessing in the sense of observing or following it, or see, even attention. You are merely the witness consciousness. Not related. Simply that. Right now. Even now. Even then, in a moment where some words start flowing, or some body sensations start arising. The automaticity of the pranas generating body-mind notion of self by name as an identity, you see, is an automaticity that's completely unnecessary, would not occur once there is the establishment in the self condition, the true heart, the root of Amritanadi. When that is just so, then this separate I does not arise or fly out of the heart. It simply doesn't arise. And there is something about that is incomprehensible except in the case of realization. And in fact, if it occurred as a merely mechanical procedure, you would go mad. The loss of identity is associated with feelings of great stress and madness. But this is not that of that nature. This is a spiritual matter, a divine yogic matter. It's in fact simply reality. It's not disturbing. It is all bliss. It is utterly free. And it liberates like liberates all the pranas, like it says in the Old Testament. My soul is set free like birds from the snare of fowlers. All these motions vanish. And if the world arises, the apparent world arises, it is, in the ultimate awakening, recognized. That is the seventh stage of awakening. Simply recognized, tacitly recognized, without the arising of a separate self. It is all arising, every apparent object, anything arising apparently, is tacitly, inherently recognized to be only an apparent modification, non-binding, unnecessary, nothing but the self itself, its own radiance, which is identical to itself. Conscious light, the bright, is one only. It's not consciousness and light. It's not Shiva and Shakti. It's one only, indivisible, absolute, divine. It's not merely inward. It is all and transcends all and all. The perfect condition is, for whatever it is worth, I assure you it is.